Thank you, Mr. Announcer. No, wait, that's me. Welcome to the Real Gary Tussey podcast. We're going to continue talking about where I came from, so you know why I'm here, so you know why I'm headed where I'm headed. And you too, hopefully, get something out of this that helps you feel like making it through another day, and not only making it through another day, absolutely giving it the what for. You know what? I need to tell you this right now. This would be my disclaimer. I eat adversity for breakfast while it's still crunchy, and you need to know that. Only the real Gary Tussey does that. So make a note of that everybody's going to face adversity now and again. Just pour some milk over and eat it before it gets soggy. We've been talking about the real Gary Tussey that's from Cincinnati that moved to Kentucky, that's made a big splash in many parts of the world, and, well, at least a ripple. And we left off on our last episode talking about we would walk out. My address in Cincinnati is 4679 Northfield Road. How many of you can remember your childhood address? That's so interesting to me that you still can. You impress me so much by that. Maybe you can remember your phone number like I did, but I have a lot of vivid memories. I mean, a lot of them really good, some of them really bad. And when I think of the really good memories, I feel real good about that. I feel real good about the real good memories. I have some real bad memories. I feel real bad about those. And sometimes if I dwell on them, I feel really, really bad about that. But it's a fact of life. And so you've got to learn how that nothing's been an accident in your life. Come or go what may, you got to make something of it. That's the thing about a mistake. Once you've made a mistake, it's not really a mistake until you didn't learn from it. What'd you take away from it? What'd you learn from it? So we're going to talk a little bit more today. I am just thrilled to talk about my grandparents, who were a major factor for shaping my entire life. I would walk out of the front door of our little house at 4679 Northfield Road, go to the right up Conklin Road, and my maternal grandparents lived there, Tom and Ida Lunsford, and I would get to visit them. Now, by the time I came into their life, they were quite elderly because my mother was the youngest of a lot of children. My father was the youngest of 5 children, and so actually both of my grandparents were somewhat elderly. All the more my maternal grandparents were older. But I mentioned the other day, and many of you know, just so you know that you're listening to the real Gary Tussey. I'm the Gary Tussey that is a Tussey Music and Entertainment producer, executive producer. We do television, podcasting, radio, recording, and all that. That's this Gary Tussey you're listening to. But I've been a musician for a few years, and I started that trek at 8 years old. And my maternal grandfather, who lived up the block from us on Conklin Avenue, his name was Tom Lunsford, and he and we called him Grandpa. We called Grandma. So that's Grandma and Grandpa. My paternal grandparents we called Granny and Granddaddy. So Grandma and Grandpa Lunsford, I heard this from a child. My mother made sure that I knew this, that Tom and Ida Lunsford, my grandparents, had a radio show on WLW 700 in Cincinnati, a live radio show every week. And they played music, took requests, played music, and sang. Well, not only did my mother tell me that, but I would go to their house and Grandpa would pull some sort of guitar. Now, Grandpa was a trader. He trader. He would trade this, trade that, trade the other. He would gain this, lose that, lose the other. But he always had a guitar hanging on the wall, and he would pull that guitar down, and I'll never forget the song I heard all the time that Grandma and Grandpa would sing was Old Shep. Now, some of you too young, unless there's a rap version of Old Shep, you've probably never heard it. But I will tell you this: Old Shep is one of the saddest songs you will ever hear in your life. I mean, here I am, a young child, just enamored with my grandparents, and they sing Old Shep, which is a song about shooting a dog. And you can see the irony in that and the comedy in that, but the dog got old, and the boy who loved the dog so much had to put the dog down. So they sang about taking the dog and putting it down. So I guess, lyrics for songs through the years maybe hasn't changed that much. Hang down your head, Tom Duke. Some of that stuff is a little depressing. So let's move on from that. But they also sang songs like Will the Circle Be Unbroken? They sang a lot of Hank Williams songs, not Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams songs. I learned a lot from that. And that's when I was really young. But about 8 years old, my parents bought me a guitar, and I'll never forget this. Grandpa, he would walk down to our house. I told you that we lived so close. He would walk down to our house, and when he'd walk down, he would come and visit us because he was retired by now, and he'd come visit. Mom wasn't working at the time. She did work from time to time, but at the time she wasn't, and Grandpa would come down often. Well, I got this guitar, and I'll never forget it. It was a nylon string little guitar, kind of like the size that Ed Sheeran plays now, just a smaller guitar like that. Grandpa taught me my first chords, and I'll never forget this. He showed me, he said, "Son, now this is a G." And he made a G a different way than it showed me from the book. He would take a G on this guitar, and he would take finger number one. And I teach guitar, so I'm going to tell you how I teach my students. And those of you watching on the reel cams can see that we take this is finger number 2. He'd take finger number 2 and he'd put it on the first string, then take his thumb and come over on the 6th string, and he'd strum and say that's a G. So now I'm a little older, and he's coming down and he's singing one of the songs, and I'll never forget, he's teaching me how to play guitar, and he's showing me these chords and he's playing it. And I'll never forget what I thought. It marked the spot for me. He sang, and he was a very good singer. And I mean, he was no Elvis maybe, but I mean, he was a good singer. And if you can carry a tune, you're a good singer. So he would sing, and I'll never forget what was in my mind about his singing, about what he was teaching me. I'll never forget. This is the very thought that ran through this little 8-year-old mind. My grandpa played and sang and strummed. It was just 2 chords on the song, and I'll never forget what I thought. What ran through my mind is, that doesn't sound like the Beatles. And I know why, looking back, why I did at the time. And I told you I was raised in the 60s and come of age in the 70s, and so everything on the radio when Mother was getting us ready for school in the morning, it was all Beatles. It was I Want to Hold Your Hand. It was all these Twist and Shout. It was Hard Day's Night. It was all that. And I remember Grandpa played that chord and he sang, and I thought, that doesn't sound like the Beatles. And I kind of dismissed it at the time. But through the years, something that I dismissed as a child became as a matter of fact, still to this moment, every year, what Grandpa did for me at 8 years old, showing me that chord, every year that gets bigger and bigger to me. Every year. And so that was amazing. We need more grandpas that teach the grandkids how to play music, and more grandpas that teach the kids how to sing, and it's just major. Anyway, on the other side, when I would walk out of my front door at 4679, and if you drive by there in the Cincinnati area, don't take a picture or whatever and realize that's where the real Gary Tussey was reared, but don't bother them, because I don't know who lives there now, but that house is still there. But when I walk out of the door at 4679 Northfield Road and go to the left, then I would go up an entire block. 2 minutes to the right was Grandma and Grandpa Lunsford. 4 to 5 minutes to the left, the walk was Granny and Granddaddy Tussey. And I would go in there, and unlike my maternal grandparents, my granny and granddaddy, they weren't quite as elderly as grandma and grandpa, so they had a lot going on. And my granddaddy spoke with a really big voice, and those of you listening who knew any of our family back then, a lot of Tusseys speak with a big voice, and granddaddy was no different. As a matter of fact, I mean, we're talking so big, and how many of you can relate to this? We're talking a voice so big that whenever he would call on the phone, Mom had to hold the phone out past her shoulder, and the whole house could hear Granddaddy talking on the phone. When we walked in the house, he would he'd sit on that couch and he'd yell out our names. I'll never forget, more than yelling out my name, because my brother and I were together all the time when we were kids. He would yell out, "Marky, come in here, Marky," just like that. So my brother Mark got the roll call like that. But a big thing about my granddaddy on my dad's side, my paternal grandfather, he played the harmonica and sang. And I'm telling you, I would catch him occasionally. Now, he didn't try to teach us anything like Grandpa did, but that didn't matter. I'll never forget this, that Granddaddy would play the harmonica, and then he would just lean his head back and sing for all it's worth. And to this day, I can't tell you he was a good singer or he was a bad singer, but I can tell you this, he put 110% into it. And so that was a really, really good memories. And we're talking about good memories that give you good feelings, and then I got some bad memories that give me some bad feelings, but my life is shaped by them, and your life is shaped by good, bad, ugly, good, indifferent, high stuff, low stuff, all of it. And you got to take it for what it is and let it be for you what it needs to be. I lost that grandparent entirely too early. It was only a short time after that. I was 12 years old, and I lost Granddaddy to cancer. All of us lost big time when we lost him. And I got some real good stories to tell you about him and other things about him. But the takeaway today was the influence that was on my life in music and as a musician, as a child, and my grandparents living so close and having that lineage, that heritage of music to pass on. And they did it. What do you have to pass on, and are you doing it? Thanks for listening to The Real Gary Tussey. Until next time, don't forget, you can do it. Just rise up and take advantage of the occasion.